Warren Buffett can make investments that only billionaires can make. In this video, I'll show you why these special investments are so lucrative and why regular people like you and I can't get involved. Warren Buffett is playing a different game than the rest of us when he invests. The game he's playing is easier, and that means when he sounds off with investment advice for regular people, it's no more or less valuable than any other pundit. For any of you who clicked on a video about Warren Buffett without knowing who he is, he's the world's richest person, on and off with the usual suspects, Bill Gates, Elon, etc. He owns Berkshire Hathaway, a giant company. His fans are legion, and they call themselves Berkeys. They attend the Woodstock of capitalism in Omaha, Nebraska every year when Berkshire Hathaway has their annual meeting. He's been a millionaire since 1962. He was born in 1930, so he's been a millionaire for a really long time, and he's pretty old. He is now worth $100 billion. Buffett's fortune is massive. He has $100 billion. However, he isn't in the very top tier of fortunes. That title goes to the so-called Oil Fund of Norway. The formal name is the Government Pension Fund of Norway, which controls $1.3 trillion. That's the largest fund on earth. I'm going to argue in this video that the more money you have in your fund under management, the more money you make, as in the rich get richer. Specifically, at every order of magnitude, the rate of return on your fund gets higher, and I'm going to tell you why. Let's talk about Thomas Piketty. He became very famous in 2013 for writing a best-selling book called Capital. The book's main thesis was that the rate of return on capital is greater than the rate of return on labor. The famous equation R is greater than G was a talking point in 2013 and 2014 when this book was widely discussed. But Piketty made another point, which is that the rate of return on more capital is greater than less capital, and that's what this video is about. So here's a quote from Piketty. Past a certain threshold, all large fortunes, whether inherited or entrepreneurial in origin, grow at extremely high rates, regardless of whether the owner of the fortune works or not. He compares inherited wealth to someone like Bill Gates, who grew up middle class and became a billionaire. If you inherited your wealth, or if you're Bill Gates, your fortune is going to continue growing at a greater and greater rate as time goes on compared to smaller fortunes. So this is for two reasons, according to Piketty. First reason is economies of scale. For a large fund, for a large fortune, you hire people, you hire experts to manage your money, and you can more effectively diversify your investments. This reduces your risk, so you lose less money and you make more. The second reason, you have bargaining power and you have access to inside information. People are going to bring you good deals. This video, this example for Buffett that I'm about to go through is mostly about the second one, but both reasons apply to Buffett. Before we get into the story of Buffett's great investment, I'm going to go on a little side note here and talk about Buffett's estate plan. Buffett is going to give 99% of his fortune to charity, and he's not going to give a massive inheritance to his children. Piketty, in his book, advocated for a worldwide progressive estate tax to prevent inherited wealth from traveling through generation, which increases inequality as the wealth grows larger and larger in a family. So by giving his money to charity, Buffett achieves part of Piketty's policy goals, since he won't be establishing this massive fortune that goes through the generations. And some of you might be saying, well, Buffett could evade the estate tax if he wanted. If he wanted to give his money to his children, he could set up a perpetual trust. There's various ways for wealthy families to evade these taxes, but apparently he's decided not to do that. Okay, now I'm going to tell you the story of a great investment that Warren Buffett made and that the general public made at about the same time and about the same price, so that we can look at the two groups of people side by side and see how they do in comparison with each other. Let's go back in time to 2008. Lehman Brothers was allowed to collapse and financial markets were locked up. There was no liquidity. Goldman Sachs needed cash, liquid cash. So Warren Buffett stepped in and provided them with $5 billion. In return, he gained preferred shares of stock that aren't available to the public, and these shares paid a yearly dividend of 10%. So he put in $5 billion, he put that at risk, and he gained $500 million a year. He also gained warrants to buy common stock at $115. Those were valid for 5 years. So if the stock tanked, he doesn't have to worry about these warrants or use them, but if the stock goes up, he can simply exercise them and flip the shares for profit, or as we'll see, he can set things up in a tax advantage way and simply get more shares of Goldman. At the same time that Buffett was making his deal with Goldman, the general public was offered a stock sale. They were offered 46.7 million shares at $123 per share. So if you do the math, you'll see that that's $5.7 billion. So great. Let's fast forward a few months. That $123 share went down to $80, but ended up recovering its value about 5 or 6 months later in April 2009, and the stock ended up going higher than that. So the people who put in $123 took on some risk. They were underwater for a while, but they ended up making a small profit. But how did things go for Buffett? He collected his $500 million a year for several years until Goldman bought back those preferred shares and paid $500 million extra for the right to do that. Buffett ended up exercising his warrants, and when he did so, he used them not to get cash, not to get shares and sell them immediately for cash, but to get shares, and with the profit he got more shares, common shares of Goldman Sachs. So when he put his $5 billion at risk, he got more reward for less risk than the retail investors because of these dividends, because of the warrants, and because of the tax advantage. The general public actually invested more money. Warren put up $5 billion at risk. The general public put $5.7 billion at risk, but the general public earned lower return. So now you know what you probably already suspected. Big funds get better investment terms. They also get many other advantages, but I'm going to stop this video here. So I leave you with the question, is this unfair? Should we do something about it? Thomas Piketty has called for global wealth tax. That's an annual tax on how much money you have for extremely wealthy people and funds. Do you think that's a good idea? Sound off in the comments, and if you like videos like this, click subscribe. Thank you.